All right, so today's video is going to be relatively short because it's mostly review. We've talked about soil quite in depth up until this point. This part of this unit, Unit 5, 5.2, uh, requires us to talk about soil again and kind of tying nutrients all together. So we'll do a brief kind of review over what makes up soil, why soil is important, a couple of characteristics of soils, talk about pros and cons of growing in different types of soils, and we'll kind of leave it at that. So if you need more review, look back to previous units where we talked about soil and the composition of soil, or email me questions. All right, so what is soil? And remember, think back, we talked about soil being an ecosystem in itself, but more specifically, soil is made up of both non-living and living material, and it's also made up of inorganic and organic material. So some of the non-living inorganic material, of course, goes back to that clay, silt, and sand. Okay, what type of particle, and then the percentages that it is represented within the soil. And then you have living and non-living organic material, and this kind of gets to that soil as an ecosystem type of idea. Living and non-living organic material. So you have dead plant material, um, which provides a lot of nutrients into the soil, especially as it decays. You have bacteria, which kind of the foundation there of the ecosystem in the soil. Insects, and then worms, all of them play very important roles in making the soil what it is. Remember, we talked about not only fixing certain nutrients, making it organic, also creating air pockets within the soil for gas exchange, water flow. All those things are important. So a couple things that soil does to help plants grow. Number one, provides support for the root system. It's very important. As plants grow up or out, they do need support. So that composition of the soil is important. We'll talk about that more here in a couple slides. The soil is a site of essential nutrients that is provided to the plants for growth. Soil holds water and makes it accessible to plants. Different soil composition holds water better or worse. Soil contains air spaces, which is necessary for plant growth. And again, whether it's sand, silt, clay, or the composition of each together is important um, for that aspect of soil. All right, so soil particles, and we've talked about this, so remember the characteristics of all of the sand, silt, and clays. Okay. Remember, water moves quickly through sand and slower through silt and clay, and this is important not only for water but also for nutrient flow, the leaching that we talked about, and also air exchange pockets or gas pockets in the soil, important for the overall health of the plant. So if we really kind of, ask the question, and again, in a virtual world right now, so you just kind of have to bear with me, but if I was to ask you the question, based off your knowledge of different types of soil particles, which one is better for growing? And there is, it depends on the plant, of course, but there's an ideal range that we look at when it comes to growing plants. So a couple of things to remember. Sand, okay, sand's going to have a large airspace, which is great. Okay, that's important, but it's also it can be a negative thing. With the large airspace is going to provide less roots or less support for roots. Okay? It's not as compacted soil, not a lot of anchorage, so to speak. The big downfall with sand is water runs right through it and also carries the nutrients that could be found in the soil right with the water. Uh, Sand doesn't hold on to water very well. So, that's not going to provide plants with the right type of water access that it needs. So then we look at clay. Okay, clay is extremely compacted soil. It's not a lot of airspace there, especially when it gets wet. And clay also holds on to water. Water doesn't move through it very quickly, which sometimes can make the soil too wet for plants to grow, which is also a bad thing. So the ideal growing medium is silt. Okay, it's kind of this happy middle area between sand and clay. Not as compacted, but it gives enough anchorage support for the roots. The water moves through it, but not so fast that plants can't uptake that water. But still, normally doesn't stay so wet that plants don't grow either. But this silt area is also kind of vulnerable to erosion. Okay, when we see erosion happening, is typically we see silt being washed away, um, and that's that topsoil layer that's lost. So again, very short video, just kind of a review. If you need anything, let me know. Be sure you complete the video form that goes with this, and then we'll continue on with 5.3 tomorrow. Thank you.